Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Peg, for all the above, and the Mountain Cloud team for all the many things that are being done at Mountain Cloud. It's fantastic, really, that you know we've got such a great team supporting and organising things at Mountain Cloud. Huge gratitude to the whole team, including Peg, who's actually our new board chair as of a week's time. Thank you very much for that, in addition to everything else, Peg. Okay, so we're going to be looking at another koan from this mighty collection, the Gateless Gate, compiled in 1228 by the monk, the master Wu Men, or Mumon, in his Japanese, Sino-Japanese rendering of his name. Wu Men, Mumon. I didn't yet talk about the first koan in his collection, for various reasons, but I will get to it. That first koan is Mu. Does a dog have Buddha nature? Mu. Joshu said Mu. It was a koan very sort of important to Mu Mon himself. He's said to have sat with it for 6.5 years with great intensity and determination, banging his head on a pillar to keep himself awake so that he could sit deep into the night without falling asleep. And his rigor, his austerity, his determination, his exasperation paid off, as it quite often seems to do in the realm of spiritual seeking. He had a most profound awakening. It's sort of proof, if proof were needed, that awakening does not only happen spontaneously. It does happen sometimes spontaneously. It's rare, and it's rarer still that a spontaneous awakening leads to somebody becoming what we might call a sort of awakened person. It's not usually, it doesn't usually happen. I mean, if it happens at all by itself, it doesn't usually happen in such a way that the person can be thoroughly transformed by it. That usually takes more training of a certain kind, of whatever kind they may stumble into or be led into. But don't imagine that training doesn't work. See, we might have this idea that, some people sort of just awaken. And that's how it is. Because we have stories like that, So Saul on the road to Damascus, suddenly having some kind of an awakening experience, presumably. For example, becoming Saint Paul. But actually, there is genuine training. That's why Zen exists. That's why we are gathered here tonight. Because training does actually work. And the particular training, the remarkable training that has come down in the Zen tradition, it's got different faces, but one of its faces, one of its methods is koan training. It's a really sort of exceptional system. Why is it exceptional? Well, for one thing, it doesn't really try to describe awakening. It doesn't try to guide us to it sort of through concepts. It tries to show us that awakening is staring us in the face. It's touching us from all sides. It's gurgling away inside us. It's calling to us with every sound we hear. Zen tries to make us realize that the experience of this moment, of any moment, is in fact sort of the teaching of awakening. This very moment is nothing but awakening or awakened reality, or what we awaken to in awakening. Clearly, sort of unequivocally showing itself to us, speaking to us. And every koan is just a little device to try to help that be clearer. Okay, so the one we're looking at today, I mean, yes, could say more, of course, but no, let me just get to it now. The koan today is number 8 in this collection, the Gateless Gate. And it goes like this. It's called Ketchu makes carts. The koan is like this. Master Getan asked a monk, Ketchu made 100 carts. If he took off both wheels and removed the axle, what would he make clear about the cart? Okay, so that is the koan. Ketchu, who was a legendary cart maker, is said to have invented the cart, which I find a little implausible because carts were probably invented around the 5th or 6th millennium BCE in the steppes of Eastern Europe, sort of between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, where the Yanmaya people of a certain kind of burial mound, known as Yanmaya is the name of these burial mounds in Russian. People from that region dispersed to east and west, reaching as far as Portugal in the west and as far as the Indus Valley, I think, in the east. And if you read Who We Are and How We Came Here, or something like that, I think it's called, a book on DNA by David, oh man, I can't remember his name. There's a professor at NYU, I think in 2019 or so, his book came out, Who We Are and How We Got Here. Maybe that's what it's called. It's a sort of human history of human migration, roughly, through DNA. I think it's a very up-to-date, comprehensive account of the study of human migration patterns over the last 40,000 years or something, through DNA. It's remarkable how much Yanmaya DNA everybody from sort of central India to Portugal has, staggering amounts. Because these people, the Yanmaya, who had domesticated horses, had gone on to discover or create or invent the wheel and had got wagons going. And because they had wagons, they were significantly more in their migratory patterns, in their pastoral patterns with their flocks of herds of horses and of cattle and of sheep, flocks of sheep and goats, they could, cart a lot more stuff about with them. So they dispersed very sort of effectively across the old world. So they probably were really the inventors of the cart. It's thought. It's not Ketchu. But anyway, Ketchu was some legendary Chinese figure who was a very good, skilled cart maker and is said to have made at least 100 very fine carts. So this monk would have known of Ketchu. It's, like, what's he called? Emilio Porci or Pininfarina, who's a famous Italian car designer. Something like that, made some very beautiful cars. I think he designed for Ferrari. Emilio Porci designed for Porsche, I guess. I don't know who designed for Rolls-Royce or Bugatti or Cadillac or whatever, but, I suppose Elon Musk designed some fine cars, might we say. Anyway, he's a very fine builder of cars. So, if he removed both wheels and the axle, what would he make clear about the cart? It's a staggering question. I mean, first of all, you think, well, it's just absurd. I mean, all he'd make clear is that a cart needs axles and a wheel to function. Nice and logical. But these carts aren't of our world of logic. They're not of the world as we normally understand it. They're precisely agents of another world, agents of another way of seeing. It's not really another world because it's right here, but it sure feels like it because it's such a different perspective. What is that perspective? He's trying to tell us, take off the axle, take off the wheels, and you'll find it. Well, what could that mean for us? Some of you have, Peg was mentioning, this original love business that I've got myself into. This amazing course that I'm very enthusiastic about, actually, which basically is my reframing of the 4 kinds of Zen, which is a deep old teaching in the Zen tradition from the 7th century with Wei Nung, that there are 4 kinds of Zen, 4 kinds of Zen practice. I feel that in latter days we've come to really primarily teach one kind. That's really what these koans are about. It's one kind of Zen. But there are said to be 4. And in fact, in our lineage, there are even said to be 5. But, they are, I've slightly reframed them for 4 kinds that are in this original love program. And it's built on the idea that's actually about a cart. That's in the very early document from 5th or 6th century CE China that says Buddhist practice, this is Chinese Buddhism, which is sort of, Zen was a sort of, or Chan was a sort of a maturing of Buddhism in China, you could say, that really emerged in 6th, 7th century CE. And has been going strong ever since. But of course it has deep antecedents in earlier Buddhism and earlier Taoism as well. But there's this document says, basically this Buddhist practice here in China is a cart track with 2 ruts, 1 for either wheel. 1 rut is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is a deep early Buddhist training. Programmatic, gradual development through practice, moving through different ways of settling, different ways of calming, different ways of clarifying, and different ways of studying present moment experience until we get to a point where we start to take it apart. We can actually dismantle the sort of single whole of now and discover that, in a sense, it can be divided into parts, into strands of experience. And as we do that, it loses its impenetrable sort of solidity, and we start to see that it's not as solid as it appears, and we kind of get deeper and deeper sort of into it, and as the parts can then be subdivided into further parts, things start to break apart, and gradually we get closer and closer to a liberative experience. That's track number one, rut number one. Rut number two is it has no name. I think it's labeled in that document principle, or the way with a capital W. But those are meaningless labels, unhelpful labels. There is no helpful label. The only value of a label here is that it might alert us to the possibility of experiencing things in a very different way. It's not just a randomly different way, though. It's a different way that's deeply helpful. It's a different way that when we glimpse it, we know, without a shred of doubt, is a more real way. In fact, if we have a clear awakening, we kind of come to see that it is, in a certain sense, the only thing that's real. It's not to devalue the way we normally experience things, but actually what we awaken to in awakening is, in a sense, the only thing that's real. Now, that's what Master Getan is trying to help us find. The cart without wheels. The cart without an axle. Well, obviously that's a useless cart. No. No. What might it be to remove a wheel? If the cart is you, as you ordinarily feel yourself to function, removing a wheel would be kind of a major thing. You'd think a major loss. Both wheels. What might the two wheels be? Could they be past and future? Could they be self and other? Could they be life and death? Could they be inside and outside? How many old and young? How many pairs? Dualistic pairs, dualisms do we take for granted? Do we just assume them and take them for granted? High and low, long and short, old and young, big and small, near and far, before and after, yes and no. parent and child. Left and right. What would it, how would it be possible to remove those? What could that sort of be in terms of this cart track? One rut, we understand, fine, it's a gradual process of cultivation through meditation practice. Other rut, no cultivation, nothing to cultivate, no wheel, no rut. The other rut is no rut. Where is it? It's right here. Always right here. It's as if all the way along through our life, going through the years, through our practice, if we're seriously devoted to practice, which beautifully, wonderfully, so many of you are. How fantastic. All these years of, really cultivating ourselves, really. Developing. I mean, mostly that means releasing, but we're doing it. We're getting clearer. Bit by bit, we're getting clearer. We're sort of dropping things that we had taken for granted, and, maybe not two major wheels and an axle, but lots of sort of little add-ons are being released, bells and whistles and little unnecessary mirrors and sirens and other things we've added to the cart being released. And eventually, maybe, there's not a lot left except axle and two wheels. Well, we obviously can't let those go because, you can't live without them. Self, other, me. What is this axle? What might it be? What might Getan be getting at? Axle, wheels, the core properties of a cart, discovered 7,000 years ago near the Caspian Sea. How treasured by humans, still in use. How can a cart be a cart without an axle? How can we be a person without core, absolutely integral sort of elements of ourself? That's the challenge of Getan. But the thing is, he says, suppose Ketchu removed the wheels and the axle. I mean, arguably, in his analogy, in his metaphor, in his simile, there's just something a little awry with the word remove. Does Ketchu need to remove the axle? Rut 1, you need to remove the axle. If you're interested in that sort of thing, that's where Rut 1 can sort of train us to the point, almost to the point of removing the axle. But Rut 2, what is it that's been with us all along? The whole process of path of training, whole path of life, all along has been two ruts. The one we know and the one that's present, even though we may not know it. The one that's absolutely, sort of integral to us, always, always here, never not here. In that rut, do we remove anything? Is there anything to remove? What is this cart with no wheels and no axle? What can it do? Is it useless? Sounds like it, but is it? I'm just debating whether to go into the verse. I kind of want to, but I don't want to keep you too late. But I think I can maybe do just a little bit more, because the verse is very good actually. This is a verse written by Mumon. It says, "Where the active wheel revolves, even a master fails. It moves in 4 directions, above and below, south and north, east and west." The key here, Mumon is playing on wheels. Getan's taken away the wheels. And Mumon says, where the active wheel revolves. What is this active wheel he's talking about? It's really sort of, again, it's really about this second rut, awakening, the way, capital W. What is it? Well, we hear that there's nothing outside it. We hear that. We also hear it's nothing. Shunyata, emptiness, no thing. Okay, so let's just pause a moment. We don't want to be thinking about this. Right here now, there are manifestly things. There's a computer, there's a Zoom meeting going on, there's some boring old English fart talking slowly and boringly about some weird cart without a wheel. That's something. There's a book, a koan book that he's reading from or riffing from. There's a seat I'm sitting on. There's things. There's supper waiting, or whatever. We hope. There's lots of things. Lots and lots of things. There's a sun in the sky, or sun's about to set, and there's trees and cars and cities and space, satellites in space, and crazy plans for vacuum railway systems. There's all kinds of things. Wheels, axles, lots of them. But what if we actually become still? What if we fall backward into the space behind us? What is there? What if we find that there's a wider context that's boundless? And that this little world is just a scene arising in it. A little bit like a theatre, stage in a theatre. It's a little offering, an appearance of colour and sound and beauty and, unfortunately, sadness and brutality and cruelty and oppression and stupidity and blindness, and where the actors are driven by greed and hate. and misunderstanding because they don't know the wider context. So what if right now the wider context behind us, as if we're just sort of stepping back a little bit, taking the backward step that the great master Yakusan spoke of in the 9th century in China. Take the backward step that shines the light inward. All it takes is a little bit of trust, a little smidgen of surrender, to fall back, tiny bit, to disengage, to unhook, to free ourselves from what binds us to the little scene in front. If we get just a little bit free of it, we start to see it in a different way. We start to see it from a different perspective and in a different context. We also start to become more aware of this alternative, this second rut, which is not really a rut at all. It's vast. It's vastly peaceful. It's quiet. It's still, silent, has no boundaries, no limits of any kind, anywhere. It's completely empty. And it's completely present and utterly full of all this. All this. It's neither quiet nor still. It's marvelously active. It's dynamic. When we touch it for real, not think about it, not get sort of conscious sort of glimpses of it as some dimension of awareness, which it sort of is as well, but when we actually really hit it, sort of bone on bone, it's crazily dynamic. It's, it's 100,000 volts. It's a power beyond anything we could conceive when we actually connect. And it's right here. It's right here. All it takes is throwing off the wheels, taking out the axle. Then we find it. But we like the wheels. We like the axle. We can't live without them. They're the foundation of my life. So just bit by bit, just disengaging a little bit, just let me just see if somehow there's space behind that I can just rest back into. And fine, my cart, I can still have wheels, but I'm just going to sort of step out of the cart backward. Just let it be there. Let my life just be there and disengage a little bit. And then maybe I can disengage a little bit more. Maybe I can open to what's behind. Coming back to something else that isn't actually anything. But that's not to say that there isn't something to find. falling back. What is there behind? It's real. Though it isn't anything, but it's real. So this is what our koans are catalysts for, stimuli for, fertilizers. Doesn't know, that's wrong really. I've said that a lot, but it's not really right, because this doesn't need any fertilization. It's already 1000% here. Fully present. This is a method. It's a means, it's a method, it's a way, it's a training. We're lucky. I'm telling you, we're really lucky that methods exist. Not just random. This sort of, I mean, look, this method works. It's not, unfortunately, maybe it's not sort of 100% reliable and predictable, but it's not too bad either. Okay, I think I better stop, because I've kept you long enough, and it's a lovely Thursday evening, and I hope you'll continue as we close shortly. I hope you'll basically just continue to have a fantastic evening. I hope this talk also will be, well, I suppose most of all I hope it won't be any discouragement. I really hope it'll be an encouragement for your practice, that you'll main thing is to enjoy your practice. And that means, of course, things will come up at times that aren't very enjoyable at all in our life, and therefore in our practice. And sometimes not so much in our life, but yet practice is just sort of not as alive as it can be. I want to try to help it be alive for you. So mostly, above all, not forgetting that it's real, that we're on the path of something real. We're not just idling away our time. We're sort of moving closer to reality. It's like, what the hell is this life, really? Well, practice is finding the answer to that. What is it to be me, alive? What is this with consciousness? That's what practice is for, is to answer that question. So it's really, it's real. It's real. I sorry to be repeating myself. It's real. Okay. We shall stop right there, and I'm looking forward actually to continuing with these koans in the Gateless Gate, which is what I'm going to be doing for the next few months, I imagine. Okay, thank you so much, very, very much to everybody for your practice, for joining in, for allowing me to speak like this, and hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.